some of what we do. I'm not going to read through it. Growing gardens is sort of our entry point and our heading for the things that are helping people grow. I'll talk through a couple examples there. People often say, what do you do in the winter? Well, I work as much or more in the winter as I do in the summer is actually the downtime because we're doing stuff, but it's already going. We're doing a lot of planning and training in the spring. We're doing a lot of evaluating in the fall. So these things are all year round, even if you don't see us out in the community quite as much all year round. After school programs, summer camps, a lot of volunteer work, etc. So our garden leadership training, I already mentioned we're training teams. So I feel like what we're often doing is giving people a chance to participate. So while we won't say that we have clients, like we often have to put on a grant form, well, who are your clients? Who do you serve? Well, we believe that if we engage a broad sector of our community and make things open, accessible, and known by people of a variety of incomes, particularly people who have fewer access to resources for whatever reason, we can make a stronger community. So for instance, our garden leadership training program, which we've been doing for 6 years now, teams come together. We'll often target our recruitment in areas that are maybe underrepresented by healthy food or gardens or opportunities, but people come to us from churches or synagogues or schools of all different socioeconomic backgrounds, and everyone participates together and everyone learns together, and we think that makes a stronger community. So we have people from a public housing community and people from a wealthy synagogue on the west side of Ann Arbor, learning and sharing in ways that they probably would have never interacted. One interesting thing, last year we had 83 people in our class, 15 teams from all over Washtenaw County and a couple from Out County. This year we had a great team from Inkster and one from Adrian, who came we couldn't believe they want to drive. This is once a week one evening a week for 5 weeks. And that quite a few people say, I never came to Ypsi, or I never came to Ypsi after dark. And so we think that through things like this, even though it's not one of our intended outcomes, we're changing the perception of our community as one that's safe, that's welcoming, and that's where cool things and cool resources are happening. And I think that changes some of that deficit-based mentality that people have about our community and often have about urban areas, whether it's related to race or class, or I won't go into those things. So the Seed Starting Squad, I think, is another just a good illustration of a win-win. Don't mind the snow there, but this is when we get started in that program. We had a limiting factor as an organization of not enough way to get enough seedlings early spring. So we, vegetable seedlings and herb seedlings, flower seedlings, mostly vegetable seedlings, we need because we sell them as a fundraiser at both our farmers market, I'll get into, and a plant sale, so key fundraiser. We give them away and donate them. We share them with partner gardens. We plant them at our own urban. Oh goodness, I thought that was on. Sorry, you want to dig for? Thought it was on vibrate. At our own urban farm site, and we had this limiting factor of not enough space under lights that was warm, and I apologize for that. In the wintertime. So we also know that people getting growing in the spring. Who started seeds before in here? Who's done seed starting? So a number of you, you get the jankety setup. Does my window have enough light? They're getting all leggy. Is it warm enough? Do I have these lights attached to the back of the chair? Is this the right kind of light bulb? It's often a limiting factor for people kind of getting growing. And if you grow your own seedling, it's often a real affordable way to grow your own food. So looking at those sort of multiple limiting factors, we were racking our brains really, how are we going to grow more seedlings? And we said, okay, well, let's look to our community and let's make this a win-win. So we started our Seed Starting Squad. So we also knew that in the marketplace there wasn't there's still not an affordable sort of setup that you could kind of buy that would give you the right lights that you could fit in your house, etc. So we designed one and we built one. So we built this little A-frame. We built it for about $45 in materials plus volunteer and staff labor, including the 2 4-foot shop lamps, which are readily available. And we put out the call and said, hey, who wants to be part of our Seed Starting Squad? And this setup holds 4 flats. A flat, in garden speak, is about this big and has 48 cells in it, so 48 plants per flat. With the idea that you agree we will either sell you or loan you, so it's totally affordable, or we can help recoup some of that money if you want to buy it and keep it on a sliding scale. The light stand in February, March, April kind of time, and you agree, if we provide you with this for sale or loan, to grow 2 flats for us. And we'll provide you this flats. We'll actually train you in how to plant seeds, and we'll provide you flats already, and you can help plant them right there when you come pick this up. And then you have room for 2 flats for yourself. So the first year we grew 6,000 seedlings. 6,000 seedlings, and then people presumably grew about 6,000 more for themselves. We got these light stands, the ones that got borrowed back, so we have that continued resource we can lend out to people the next year. We had seedlings, people had a learning experience, people had a chance to put their hand in the ground a long time. You see the snow before you otherwise got your hands, a chance to put your hands in the ground. Win, 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 win. So I think that's an example of the kind of things we try to hit upon that help us, again, overcome limiting factors, help people overcome limiting factors, and win, win, win on a variety of different scales. There's people in our hoop house planting up seedling. That's a little later in the season. And then I'm going to get into our raised bed program. So our pilot project was a program that we were modeling after an organization called GRUB out in Olympia, Washington. So I encourage you to look them up because they really taught us a lot. I went out and visited them, where they work with low and no-income families to install raised bed gardens in their homes as a way, raised bed vegetable gardens. So we looked at that program, we modeled that, and this is what we like to say, what can you grow in a square? So we call a 4x4, not a 4x4 piece of lumber like a post, but this is a 4x4. So these are each 4 feet by 4 feet. So our program allowed us to do a university community partnership to help people grow, and also in this win-win sort of mentality, have the gardeners, the families, low and no-income families of a variety of racial backgrounds, family structure backgrounds, mostly in the Ypsi area, but we let some in our Ypsi suburb of Ann Arbor participate as well, in exchange for what we needed, data. How much can you grow in a 4x4 foot bed? If you're a gardener, you probably have a good sense, well, hey, that's a lot. But how many servings of fruits and vegetables is that? What's the dollar value of that harvest? What's the return on investment, if we're going to think about it in that sense, for the investment of the materials and the time and the labor to the startup? What's our return in the first year? And what's our return year after year after year? We don't know those numbers. In our field of gardening and small-scale urban agriculture, there is not good data. There's some numbers that say this is sort of the square-foot gardening ideal, but is that real-world data? Is that really what someone could do? It's hard to say. So how can we quantify and validate that while we're looking at how to decrease childhood obesity or adult obesity in our state, that this, which may seem like, oh, that's a fun little thing you can do to supplement, is a very real and affordable and accessible answer to what we're doing, whether we're starting with one pickle bucket on a balcony or we're getting to 4x4 feet or an even larger area. So we worked the first year with 80 families, 40 initially in the beginning of the season, and we put it on an application. We had 85 applications in like the first couple weeks, had them in English and Spanish, and the agreement was that we would provide people to come help install 3 4x4 foot raised beds, fill them with straight compost. One of them would have a trellis like that. We'd provide seeds and plants. In exchange, the family or the household would get a scale and would agree to weigh and track their produce. So we installed with 40 families, and in the first year, and it was a real-world data set. So did we get it from everyone every month? No. Did we get it from some people never? No, true. Did some people give it to us every month? Yeah, some of those. So again, real-world, community-based research. So not a perfect data set, but I can tell you that, and the families also had an incentive, and this was a key thing that we haven't been able to do since then, but was really, we were grateful to have the money through the MICHR grant to provide incentives. So we also run the Downtown Ypsi Farmers Market, which I'll talk about in a minute. I'm seeing the clock. Run the Downtown Ypsi Farmers Market, and so every month when the families were turning in their tracking data, they actually turned it in at the market. When they turned it in, they got 10 free market dollars, which is basically $10 to spend at our farmers market. So a family over the course of the season could get another $50 or $60 worth of a resource for fresh and healthy food, and we could get more and better data. So one of our families, our investment in material costs was about $85, including seeds and plants and compost and wood, etc., in 3 raised beds. So 3 beds, 1 with a trellis, seeds, plants, compost, about $85. And one of our families, who was the one definitely off the chart sort of, in just about 5 months of growing season, so without an extended season, grew 115 pounds of food. Now, they may have chosen to grow more tomatoes than lettuce, right? Like some way more than the other, so someone was a big salad eater, their numbers might not have looked as good in that way. But we also then calculated the USDA dollar value of that food using regional USDA weekly data, so we know exactly how many pounds of tomatoes, which were worth how much. That was worth $188 of fresh produce. So that was just year one, a return on investment of about $100, that we have between the 188 of food that came and the 80-something dollar investment. Now we have this resource, and a family also has more skills. We're adding every year more education and support in that way. Well, we can now know, well, what can we grow in a square? I can also tell you that in our hoop house, which is our unheated greenhouse, it's large, 30 by 96 feet. We also grow in 4 by 4 foot units because it's sort of what we use as our base unit of measurement so that we can, in everything we're doing, quantify. Because we know you grow a whole lot of food. I can tell you, I'm a gardener. But can I tell, someone out here who's never grown something, or a legislator or a governor who maybe has never seen that and gotten that is so significant? So in our hoop house, one of our 66 4 by 4 foot beds in our hoop house grew, in just its tomato season, which is about 5 months of the year, 57 pounds of heirloom organic tomatoes in one 4 by 4 foot bed, which have a retail value of about $350. That's one 4 by 4 foot bed. Now we think about that in servings of fruits and vegetables, or if we can do things like can or freeze, or share with our food bank, or neighbors in need. And then we start thinking about that as economic opportunity. So food and healthy food in a community not only becomes an opportunity to feed ourselves, improve our nutrition, share with our neighbors, etc., but it becomes very real economic opportunity with very low relative startup investment and impact. And in a time when local food is a growing market and there is more demand than there is supply in our region, much like all over the country, for people to have those 57-pound of heirloom organic tomatoes, we have chefs who said, we'll buy the whole hoop house as much as you can grow. That is not uncommon. That's a real market opportunity. So as we're figuring out ways that then backyard gardeners can band together and grow together, can market together, say at our farmers market or maybe eventually to restaurants, now we talk about economic opportunity and our ability to pay for our other health care we need as we're getting healthier and reducing our dependency on medicines that we're having to take because of our chronic diseases.